So let's talk a little bit about the interview process. What does the interview process look like at each of your companies, and what are some of the key things that you're looking for?
Most of the time it begins with a posting, and it could be one of two things. Sometimes we go out clearly and reach out to people directly, and primarily we use LinkedIn to do that, or other internal referrals from employees that can also pass people along or expedite their candidacy. Additionally, we post our openings and people apply. So once that happens, if you're contacted about it, which could be at any point in time, try and answer the phone professionally. Don't answer the phone if you can't really talk about it, and if you don't recognize that phone number, because it is off-putting to somebody who is trying to reach you. It's better to have it go to voicemail and then pick it up at a later time. But many times it does happen through email, so don't be surprised, and please, again, no typos. It does really turn people off. Spell check's automatic. And that's just the first place to start.
At least for me, once I've established and gotten that resume, and I'm going to reach out to the person, going to have a preliminary phone call with the person to get a better sense of what their interests are, why they're interested in this role. One of the things I always ask is, what is it about the role, and what is it about Hearst that is appealing to you? And if I feel like they're a good potential fit, then I would bring them in for face-to-face. And what I try to do is, in all first rounds, it's myself and then the hiring manager. I don't want to waste people's time, have people come back in 3 or 4 times. Now that might be if they're coming in for second, third rounds, but I really try to have the first round be myself and then the hiring manager right after. And then from there we determine yay or nay on who we like, who we don't like. And then we take it from there.
So for Google, we have a pretty well-documented process, and it has evolved significantly over time. So what you can anticipate these days, so if I focus more on the non-tech interviews, you'll have, however your resume reaches the recruiter will reach out and schedule a phone interview. So that is that sort of that overarching, do you have the core experience? Do we get the sense that you have the core fit for Google? And if that goes well, then we bring you in for on-site interviews. Google loves our data, so we've done a lot of research in terms of what we believe is the sort of the right number of interviews and the best way to interview to really understand whether you are going to be the right fit for us and we'll be the right fit for you as well. So there are 4 interviews, all 45 minutes long, and we cover 4 different attribute areas. So we look for your raw smarts, we look for leadership skills, we look for problem-solving abilities, and then we look for your ability to actually do the job. And then we have, and again, it's all incredibly well documented, so if any of you do interview for Google, do your research, because it's all out there. But there are a couple of different types of questions that we ask. So one is the more hypothetical, and then the other one is more behavioral. So a behavioral question would be much more, tell me about a time when, right? Tell me about a time when you were on a project that failed a week before the deadline, and how did you turn it around, or something along those lines. And then the hypothetical question would be putting yourself in a future orientation. Imagine you're in a client meeting and the power goes out. What do you do next? Things along those lines. And then the process from there, we have hiring committees that review all of the information that comes from your resume, from references, from the interview feedback. And that leads to decisions whether to extend an offer or not. So that puts us in the position where a hiring manager isn't, I need a body to do a job. Right? We don't hire based on that. We hire based on, is this somebody who is going to be a great addition to Google now and in the future?
I think that's all really so interesting to hear. And we're at very different scale organizations. And I think that's something to note as you think about both the opportunities out there, of course, but the way that you might engage with an organization, right? So that's exceptionally well documented and really thoughtful and quite interesting. I love that sort of a whole process. We're about 600 people, which is a little different than Google's size, and so most often you're interviewing directly with the hiring manager or with the group that you might be working with specifically, and so I think about that as relates to you're interviewing with someone who would be a teammate of yours, so something to keep in mind. And then I also think about think strategically about the amount of time that the interview is, and try to answer the questions where you give, this is more tactical, where you give like enough of an answer that they can, the interviewer can then sort of expand and follow up, but not so much that you're talking on for quite a period of time, because that's actually, the interviewer does want to achieve something during the interview process, and if you speak for an extended period of time, the interviewer might have to feel like they're cutting you off, which isn't socially all that fun for anyone. And so just be cognizant of the length of time you're talking, I think, is one of those just good tactics to have as well.